Yeah, the Roto Print.
Roto Print?
Yeah, I see flames way up there, too.
That's that statue right down by Harry's Market, right?
Right across the street.
Right across the street from Harry's Market.
Yeah, the flames are up there, too.
Okay, we'll get them right down there. Can I have the phone number?
My phone number is 82-8067.
8067.
Okay. The flames are up there.
Great, we get... For emergency.
Yeah, this is Mrs. Hoyt up here in Occum. There's a fire up here, either coming out of this greenhouse or coming over the mill.
Okay, we're getting right up there.
There's flames.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye. Station announced to all stations a signal 50 for the Occum Department. Possible structure fire. The Roto Print building. Repeating, a signal 50 for the Occum Department. Possible structure fire at the Roto Print building. Station announced to all stations a signal 62 for the Taft Department. Structure fire. Company, Main Street. Repeating, a signal 62 for Taffel. The town of Occum, the Roto Print building by Harry's Market for the structure fire.
1048 station in. 53.
Roger in 48.
Roto Print Corporation was an old textile. Fire was first reported at 2:52 a.m. on the morning of February 22nd, 1986. The first alarm for Occum was sounded 1 minute later. The second was for Taft at 56 a.m., with 8 more to follow over the next 2 hours.
More than 100 people without jobs tonight after the blaze at this textile mill. Out of a job tonight, not because of some labor action, but rather the result of a spectacular 13-alarm fire in the Occum section of Norwich. Ellen Abrams has the story.
At 2 o'clock this morning, firefighters rushed to the scene of this explosive fire on Main Street. But by the time they arrived, the roof of Roto Printing was already engulfed in flames. 3 employees who were in the building at the start of the blaze managed to escape. Just hours later, 2 powerful explosions rocked what was left of the company.
What they caused of, we're not aware of if it was propane or magnesium. We had much magnesium stored in both ends of the mill.
Be careful, it's real icy. 104263.
963.
253. 3.
92.
Rescue 463. Where did you get the call from? Be advised there's no one in the car. Copy this, please. Got it. Rescue 506 WW 5254 Wyndham. taking off. We got 2 men going up now. They're going to come right down and report to us. N40 to 21X. 21X. Back out of that building. Jewett City's pulling out of there. 2 men up there. I'm going to get them out now. All right, back it out of the building. We have fire showing in the top floor. Yeah, we're up in the water. Into that floor. 4's on it, go. Okay, you're going to have the whole 4th floor going here shortly. You're going to need another wire truck. Roger, it's just Jewett City going in there, Roger, now. Okay, Roger, the captain knows that ladder 2 is available, if you need. I send it up. See? In. Have the captain send it up, please. Roger. Over here, back side of the building. Repeat, pretext. Let's talk everybody away from that building back there. N2 only, go with your transmission. 400 units.
Though it looked like a scene from a wintertime fairy tale today, firefighters from 8 surrounding towns struggled to douse the smoke and flames. Officials believe the fire started in one of the factory's dryers, but fearing another explosion, firemen were forced to battle the flames from outside the building, so they can't be sure. This is all the remains of Roto Print manufacturing. Miraculously enough, no one was seriously injured in the blaze, though 135 people are now without jobs.
What the hell do I do? I've been working there 14 years.
Disbelief. I've been here 16 years. It's the only thing I know how to do. And it hurts.
The company's owner has set up a temporary office in Norwich to help workers find jobs. But Roto Printing was one of the area's largest employers, and for some, the fire has done irreparable damage.
I'll never find a job like it, never, never. There's just none around.
Ellen Abrams, Action News 8, in the Occum section of Norwich.
This is the initial water supply point, about 50 yards north of the mill complex. It was the only source of water for the first hour or so. Later arriving units began drafting from the river just east of the complex. Hydrants did exist in the general area, but were fed from the mill's fire pumps, which were not used due to possible involvement. The building's sprinkler system was also fed from the same fire pumps, and was only partially operational at the time of the fire. The fire originated in a dryer used to dry or cure printed fabrics. The fire went undetected for a time and was further aided by an attempt to extinguish the blaze by plant workers before the fire department was called. The initial attack in the area of the dryer was hampered because the fire had extended into an elaborate duct system used to vent the dryers. The ducts ran across the first floor ceiling and up through the second floor roof. There were several different exposures to the fire, including dwellings, structures, and tanks of various types. All were protected with a combination of master streams and hand lines. They included a transformer bank for the mill. An additional problem was that the power lines were on the mill side of the street, hampering the use of aerial ladders and platforms. Approximately 75 to 100 feet west of the complex is this large wood-frame apartment building, with all 14 units fully occupied at the time of the blaze. In addition, there were two-family homes to the north of this building. The intense radiant heat required defensive protection. Shingles on the roofs of these structures were smoking several times during the fire. Burning debris and firebrands were reported to have been carried several miles away by the strong gusty winds. Gusts were reported to have reached 30 miles per hour. The second of the two magnesium explosions was felt in Norwich Fire Headquarters, over 8 miles away in a valley on the other side of a hill. A white propane tank was located at the rear or east side of the mill, about 75 feet from the point in the building where the explosions occurred. A second propane tank, this one painted black, is located at the northeast or rear corner of the complex. A hydrogen peroxide tank is located on the east side of the complex, near the river in the rear. Directly adjacent to this tank was a group of drums containing sodium silicate. Both these exposures were located opposite the origin of the fire. It should be noted that during the fire, the contents of many of the tanks were not known. Because the potential for chemical involvement was unknown, all tank exposures were treated seriously and protected to the extent possible. On the west side of the complex, under the loading dock, was the dye and paint thinner mixing room. In this post-fire slide, you will note the lack of serious damage to the drums and their surroundings. The fire department's efforts in this area averted another major potential involvement. Located above the mixing room in the loading dock area was a large solvent tank. The fire damage was more intense in this area because of rapid fire spread. Baltic Fire Department's 75-foot S-15 ladder was operating about 50 feet from this location. Fortunately, no levy occurred. This post-fire view of the 5-story section of the building illustrates the intensity of the fire. Note the marks on the walls where the floors used to be. No timbers were left sticking out. Everything was burned clean. Because of insurance regulations, all the windows on the unused 5-story section of the building were boarded up. This had the effect of creating a chimney, causing the fire to burn straight up through the roof. The open roof allowed the force of the subsequent magnesium explosions to vent upward. Had the roof been tight, the explosion may well have been horizontal, dropping the walls on nearby firefighters. The large black tank at the bottom of this picture was underground at the start of the fire. The hydraulic action of the groundwater created by the fire streams raised the tank to this position during the fire, much to the surprise of nearby firefighters.